So the capability at the time of performing a deed, such as at-tawfiq, the enabling of one by Allah to do acts of obedience and have a good ending, cannot be ascribed to a created being. Rather, it is integral with action and is created by Allah at the time of encountering the deed. Whereas the capability of an action in terms of having the necessary health and ability, being in a position to act and having the necessary means, exists in a person before the action. So we have capability before the action, and we have tawfiq or capability at the time of the action. Okay? It is this type of capability which is the object of accountability. Allah, the Exalted, says, Allah does not charge a person except according to his ability. Okay, which ability? The capability of doing something physically, health-wise. Allah will not charge. The majority of Ahl Sunnah stick to the belief that power is of two kinds. One, which is the basis of obligation and the condition for Allah's command, exists prior to action and does not necessarily coexist with it. The other, with which the action actually is performed, coexist with the action. There is no action without power. So for example, the means to go to Umrah, that's before. So, or to go to Hajj. If I don't have the means, I'm not accountable in front of Allah Azza wa Jal to go to Hajj. So that comes before the action. Okay? The capability at the time in performing the deed is tawfiq, enabling the person to do an obedient stuff during that action. And this cannot be ascribed to a created being. It's only from Allah Azza wa Jal. So we have the tawfiq and we have the physical ability. Power in the sense of hadith, health, potential, ability, and fitness of organs, which exists prior to action, has been referred to in various verses of the Quran. For example, pilgrimage, Hajj, to the house is a duty men owe to Allah, those who can afford the journey thereto. So Allah said, those who can afford. So the ability, the physical ability or the health ability to go. Allah said in the Quran, fear Allah and obey Him as much as you can. Sometimes I cannot obey Allah Azza wa Jal in matters because I cannot. I'm in a situation that I cannot. I was put in a situation, I am forced on that. Examples of nowadays, our life, for example, all of our money is in commercial bank. We cannot put it in the house. We cannot do anything. We have to deal with the banks. Although the banks, the commercial banks, are full of interest, they are all riba, they are all haram. We try to the best that we can, as much as we can. Okay? That's where Allah Azza wa Jal does not hold us accountable except with what we are capable of doing. This also emphasizing that Allah enjoins fear and obedience according to one's ability. But if one who does not obey Allah could not obey Him, it would mean that Allah does not enjoin obedience except on one who actually obeys Him. It also follows that He will not punish those who do not fear and obey Him, which is obviously false. So, someone can say, I cannot obey Allah Azza wa Jal. I cannot become a Muslim. I cannot pray. Why? Falsely saying, I cannot. The word cannot doesn't count here because your ability is there. You can obey Him. You can perform salah. So, you have to do it. One who is unable to do it should feed 60 indigents. Able to do what? Fasting. The ransoms for example, killing by mistake, and so on. All of these, Allah Azza wa Jal put options. If you can do it, do this. Like for example, someone who had an oath and had to break the oath. What he needs to do? Do this. If he can't, do this. If he can't, do this. So Allah Azza wa Jal gave options based on the ability of people. Some people will not be able to do the first one, they can do the second one, and so on. This means those who have the means and tools to perform the act. So if they have, then they can be in that. The ability referred to in all these verses is ability of means, which is prior to the action. Anything before the action. You have the means to do it. That's where you are accountable for. There is no blame on those who are infirm or ill or who find no resources to spend. The ground of complaint is against such as claim exemption while they are rich. So this is when they were going to the battle of Tabuk, and Allah Azza wa Jalla, there is no blame on those who cannot afford to go, but the blame on those who can afford to go but did not go with the army to the battle of Tabuk. So it's clear that Allah does not hold accountable for the inability before the action. If that's a physical inability where the person has no means, no control over it. Did I not tell you that you cannot have patience with me? That's who? The righteous person, or Al-Khadr with Musa alayhi salam, when they went into the journey. Here too, what is meant is patience itself and not the means of patience, because Musa alayhi salam had the means of patience, but in patience itself, which were not lacking. So the means of patience was not lacking, but patience on that time was lacking. So Musa had patience. So the means were there. But on the spot, he was not able to be patient. When he saw the act of breaking the ship, or act of killing the child, or building a wall, he was not able to be patient on that, although the means were there. The reproof that Musa's friend administered to him was on his failure to observe patience, not for his lack of means for patience. So he knew that he has patience, but he said to him, you will not be able to be patient with me on that spot. We do not blame a person for not having means. We blame him for not using them even though he has them, or for not using his means for what they have been commanded to be used for, or for using them against what they should be used for. This is the blame. Not for not having the means, but for having the means and not using them rightly, or not using them at all. Allah bestows upon His faithful servants favors that He does not bestow upon the unfaithful. He helps the faithful carry out His commands, but not the unfaithful. He said, but Allah has endeared the faith to you and has made it beautiful in your hearts, and He has made hateful to you unbelief, wickedness, and rebellion. Such indeed are those who are on the right track. So His favor which He does not bestow on the unfaithful, is helping them to carry out the commands. They have the ability to do the commands, but the favor, tawfiq, comes from whom? Allah Azza wa Jal. So now we can understand the statement, capability at the time of performing the deed, which is the tawfiq, is from Allah. The ability, no one is accountable except if he is able. Okay? Those whom Allah in His plan wills to guide, He opens their breast to Islam, and those whom He wills to leave astray, He makes their breast closed and constricted, as if they had to climb up to the skies. Thus does Allah Azza wa Jal heap the penalty on those who refuse to believe. Now comes a question. So Allah Azza wa Jal will guide those who in His knowledge knew that they have the intention to be guided. But those He knew they did not have the intention to be guided will not open their chest or not open their breast for Islam. The truth is that power is of two kinds. As we have said before, one power forms the ground for action and constitutes the ability to do it and not do it. This power is the basis for the obligations of the Sharia. So the obligations of the Sharia depends on the ability to be doing, the physical ability. It precedes action and continues throughout the action, either by itself, as is asserted by those who uphold the persistence of an incident to the next instant, or through the recurrence of its replicas. The ability that is required by the Sharia is different and more specific than the ability that without its presence an action cannot be performed. So we have two abilities. The physical ability before the action and the ability at the time when the action wanted to be done. The ability that the Sharia perceives is one where an action does not have to be performed if it is missing. Someone who has no legs. Sharia orders the person in Salah to stand. He has no legs. He has no ability to stand. That's it. You don't need to stand. Even though it is not possible to be performed. Allah makes things easy on His servants. He deserves ease for them and does not want hardship for them. An ill person can perform the prayer standing, although that will hurt him more and delay his recovery. From a Sharia point of view, he is considered a person who does not have the ability to pray standing due to the harm that will cause him. Although he can be called capable, the lawgiver, which is Allah Azza wa Jal, from the view of legal capacity, has not looked at the possibility of an action, but looks at its consequences. So if someone, for example, if he makes wudu on a wound, will delay the heal of that wound, Allah Azza wa Jal ordered us not to make wudu on the wound, because we need the heal to be faster. So Allah Azza wa Jal made things easy, and if the ability will be delayed, then the rule of Sharia comes to actually make the healing come or the benefit of the body come. Although this power continues to exist until the action is performed, it is not sufficient to bring about the action. So you might be able, but that doesn't mean that you can do. Had it been sufficient, one who did not do the action would be on the same level with one who do it. So if only the requirement for doing an action, the ability of doing the action, then everyone is equal. It is therefore necessary that another force concomitant with the action exists, which is the tawfiq of Allah Azza wa Jal. So coming back to this, that the capability at the time of performing a deed such as At-tawfiq, the enabling of one by Allah to do acts of obedience and have a good ending, cannot be ascribed to a created being. Rather, it is integral with action and is created by Allah at the time of encountering the deed. So for example, I'm standing to pray. My standing to pray is an action. I have the ability. The ability is before. Now I need Allah Azza wa Jal to create my action to pray. You can call that as tawfiq, or enabling one by Allah Azza wa Jal to do that. So we are, as you can see, referring everything to Allah Azza wa Jal. That without Him, and that's true, we cannot do anything. So we need Him to help us, give us tawfiq, enable us to do that. Whereas the capability of the action, that's what we said, which is where the Sharia make an obligation or no obligation.